Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, once a TB hospital, drops to a 500-foot service tunnel. They whisper about a nurse in room 502 and a ceiling shadow that keeps pace overhead. If the bead chain ticks once, do not call back. Iodine and wet concrete burn the air. Moonlight slices dust into bars. I drifted in, half lost, and learned it was the most terrifying night of my life. The gate is open just enough for me to slip through. Air hits colder inside, damp on my cheeks. The smell of iodine nested under mildew. My light combs the brick as if brushing a sleeping animal's fur the wrong way. Dust wakes and swarms the beam, each mote like a tiny moth. Somewhere deeper, water taps twice and then waits. I breathe and see it float, ragged white in the cone. The front ward opens like a mouth missing teeth. Window after window is ribbed with moon bars. The floor glints in patches where tile survives. Paint curls from the walls as if trying to slip free. I run fingers along a railing. Rust powders my skin, metallic and dry. A draft finds my wrists, cooler than the room, and makes the hair there lift. Far off, something turned, then settled. Numbers repeat down the corridor. 318, 320, 322, and again 318, as if the building prefers certain shapes. The doors mostly stand ajar at the same angle, patient, angled like heads listening. My light skims over abandoned bed frames, over straps gone slack with age. The odor of antiseptic is strong near a spill of broken glass. It hooks in the nose, sharper than the mold. I taste iron, though my tongue touches nothing. I pass a nurse's station with a dead clock face, both hands perfect at 12. The glass is fogged from the inside, a ring at the lower edge where something once warmed the spot. Empty drawers hang open like half-told stories. A clipboard lies face down and refuses to show its name. The counter is cold where my palm rests, colder than the air, which means nothing and somehow means too much. The solarium yawns, and the night presses its weight into the open-air arches. Wind brings leaves against the concrete like cards being shuffled, patient, precise. The smell here is wet stone and something medical that should have faded decades ago but didn't. Lint traps of darkness hide in the corners. My breath slips across my lips, thin and steady, the only warm thing moving. The wind stops abruptly, as if listening back. I map my path by floor scars, cartwheels inscribing soft grooves toward the center. A squeak rolls through the black like a child's toy dragged and lifted and dragged. I turn too slowly and see only the wobble of my beam, and in that wobble the corridor seems to re-thread itself. The ceiling is low in places where it should be high. When I exhale, the mist floats forward, pauses, and unthreads sideways. A stairwell exhales cold down the spine of the building. My light takes a step before me and dies on the second landing, as if swallowed. I test the echo with a single low whistle. The return climbs one note higher, playful, then fades. I wait, thinking the shape of the space into something flatter than it is, then step up. The rail is slick. The handprint I leave is clean through the dust, and then not. The fifth-floor corridor pulls long and thin, each door a notch in a ruler. Something soft rests on the tile near an open sash, a white rubber ball, scuffed to a dull gray on one side. I nudge it with the toe of my shoe, and it rolls, obedient, toward the darker midline. It slows, hesitates against nothing, and reverses a few inches, uphill by the eye, until it kisses my shoe and stops flush. My throat tightens without a reason. The windows here are broken teeth, and the wind threads through them, finds my neck, licks it damp. The ball leans against me like a small decision not yet made. I back away, and it follows the absence, then holds its ground. When I try to step past, a shadow skims across the ceiling, thin as a wrist. The kind of movement you don't catch so much as accept. The temperature dips just at my collarbone, and nowhere else. Room numbers climb toward 502. The threshold of each door is a shallow river of dust. I find comment cards with nothing but pressure marks where words once were. A bed frame faces a window with no glass, and a view of moonlight slicing the trees. My light steadies over the far corner, and the shadows there settle like cats. I keep my eyes on the hall and move on. The ball does not follow. At the turn, a single overhead light hangs from its bead chain pull. The chain is still. No draft reaches this pocket. My beam flattens the links into a pale thread of dots, each one a tiny moon. Then the chain gives one clean, deliberate swing and taps the glass with a metal tick that is not echoed anywhere. The sound is so exact, it feels measured. I do not speak to it. The space waits, interested. Beyond the corner, the corridor spreads wider, the floor darker with old water prints. A wheelchair's outline lives in the dust where the chair is gone. It faces the wrong way, toward the wall. Cloth hangs from a door frame, yellowed linen that brushes my sleeve and leaves grit. The smell of cold laundry lingers, thin and chemical. I rub my arm, and it comes away with a faint line, as if something ached to be remembered. I step into a ward where beds are made with nobody in mind. Sheets breathe by themselves when the window stirs, then lie perfectly flat. The sound of a distant gurney wheel turning half a rotation arrives like a thought I didn't have, and then becomes mine. My skin tightens along the ribs as if air had shrunk. The moon drags silver along a rail and stops on an empty cuff, a circle too small for an adult wrist. The corridor narrows again without changing its width. The smell of chlorine swells under the tongue, a ghost of cleaning that refuses to leave. When I pass a doorway, my light throws my shadow long on the far wall, and the head tips, only there is no tilt in my neck. I try to reproduce the angle and fail. The wall keeps its own decision. Temperature climbs for several strides, then drops to cellar cold in a single step. A line of call buttons lives under each door sign. None are lit, and yet one glows darker than the others, as if the absence is thicker at that spot. I listen and hear the slow rub of cord against cord, like someone worrying a string between fingers. I move on and feel the space ease behind me, as if a held breath were let go. The numbers over the doors skip and double back, a small private game the building plays. The solarium returns, though I have not turned enough to earn it. Glass crunches under my heel where I didn't step a moment ago. The night is a colder animal now. It leans its weight into the arches and moves very little. My breath sails away shorter than before. I put my hand against a pillar and feel a faint shudder in the stone, as if something passes far below through the hill. It fades, then answers itself 2 beats later. I find an elevator cage with its mouth open and its teeth rusted in mid-bite. The inside is a square box of stale air, warmer by a few degrees, which tells me nothing good. A frayed rope snakes down the wall, ends cut clean. I back away, and the faint odor of hot dust trails out like a rumor. When the wind returns, it chases the smell away, leaves only the taste of copper and a whisper of mildew. Stairwell again. The same one or its twin. I cannot decide and won't press it. The rail has a notch I remember from a floor below, but the window here is fractured into a different geometry. Frost has scratched a pattern where no frosting should be in summer. A flower of ice that recedes as I watch and then returns. Less sure. I rest my palm on the metal, and the cold sinks deeper, bone sincere, then lets me go. Past the landing, a long line of wheel tracks engraves the dust and vanishes at a door marked with a number that was 2 corridors ago. I follow out of respect and curiosity, and the air grows busier with that silent medical tang. My mouth waters against my will. The floor dips, and I feel the hill under the building, the way it draws everything toward its tunnel. The pull is not gravity and not choice. The chain tick does not come again, and I refuse to wish for it. The ball is somewhere behind me or never was, depending on which way the building wakes. My legs know the cold before my face does, and they pause. In the pause, the sound of a single wheel rotating a fraction, locking with care, brushes the silence. It is patient, almost polite. I move on because in this place, stillness feels like notice. At a corner window, the night presses its forehead to the pane and leaves fog there, human-shaped only in the way we insist on shapes. I watch until my own breath adds a second oval beside it, uneven, smaller. The glass steadies, and both prints thin and fade at a pace that doesn't match the air. Behind me, a soft fabric sigh travels from bed to bed and stops where I don't look. I do not turn. The corridor decides I should know the numbers again. They rise without trick this time, and the stairs down appear where stairs down should be. The air warms a little, then cools a little, and keeps doing that like a hand testing water. A leaf rides the tiled seam as if on a river and pauses at my shoe. I step aside, and it chooses the crack instead, sailing on. The building listens. I listen back. Part 3. The corridor leans forward as if listening. I hold still, and the listening holds with me, a matched breath a few feet off. My light works in careful arcs. The room behaves, but the feeling is of a seat taken behind me, knees grazing the back of mine. Moon bars ladder the floor in thin rungs. I think I'm alone. No. Something knows my pauses and meets them, not closer, only exact. A curtain near an open bay does an impossible thing. The hem lifts once, just enough to show the tide line of dust, then lies perfectly flat. The air is steady. I touch the fabric and find only old starch and cold. The motion was not wind, it was decision. That word rises uninvited, so I file it away like a note I'll deny later. My palm carries the chill 2 doors down. The solarium arches return with their patient geometry. In the corner, the white rubber ball sits lodged against the baseboard, scuffed gray side turned toward the room like an eye borrowing light. I don't nudge it. It doesn't need to move to be present. A faint arc on the tile runs from the middle of the room to the wall and dies there, recent as a thought that won't finish. A nurse's station faces the hall like a small theater. Through the fogged glass, I find the dead clock again, both hands pressed to 12. The bead chain on the ceiling hangs straight, each metal dot a vertebra. The watched feeling seems to perch above the glass, or in it. I raise the beam. The chain does not stir. The quiet is full-bodied, like a held breath with practice. I pass call buttons, patient circles of obedience. One is darker than dark, swallowing the cone of my light without reflection. I listen. The building gifts back a minute of nothing, flawless and smooth. Then the faintest drag of fabric whispers behind me, not closer, just more certain. My shoulders lift and lower as if cued. I think it studies me. No. The study belongs to the walls. Stairwell air rises colder than the corridor and slips a band of cool around my ribs. The rail holds a weak vibration, a throat clearing without voice. I press my ear to the metal and taste rust through skin. Breathing lives in there, slow and careful. I pull back and the rail is only rail. I think I imagined it. No. My ear keeps what my eyes won't carry. At the landing, a window shows a fogged oval as if someone leaned there a moment ago. It sits too high for me unless I stand on my toes. I drift my beam and the print thins, then thickens, then steadies like a pulse remembering itself. I breathe near the edge. A smaller oval halos and refuses to merge. Two shapes wait beside each other, unintroduced. Fifth-floor doors repeat with pinched distances. A wheelchair's dust shadow faces a wall where nothing is worth facing. The ball has not followed, and yet a shallow gray curve marks the tile near my shoe, a memory of motion arguing to be recent. I step over it as if crossing a line. A draft taps the base of my skull, basin cold and clean, an ungloved touch that withdraws. Room 498 presents a mirror with a cracked smile. My reflection arrives half a beat late, head straight while the glass insists on a tilt, attentive and wrong. I level my chin and the glass corrects a moment after, like a person embarrassed at being noticed. I do not wait to forgive it. The watchedness thickens at the doorway, a pressure that prefers the threshold. In a treatment room, a curtain hem stirs once, then falls into saintly patience. Light glances off a stainless tray, a quiet gleam that makes an answer I didn't ask. Chlorine breathes up from the drains, puckering the air. Behind me, weight shifts without distance. It steps without sound and gains confidence in the stepping. I think it's closer. No. I am simply more visible. An X-ray lightbox hangs dead, its face powdered with talc dust ovals that aren't fingerprints so much as rehearsals for touching. Someone pressed a palm, drew away an inch at a time, deciding. I do not raise my hand. The wall hums, not wires so much as attention. The hum stops when I retreat and resumes when I hold still. Choice has a sound, and I supply it. Two ceiling vents sit centered down the corridor, and lining them into eclipse becomes a dare. I walk them closed and feel my throat tighten as if unseen lids lower, then lift as I pass beneath. Air drops 2 degrees and lifts the hair along my wrists, a soft, static prayer. The taste of iodine returns like a ghost hand on the tongue, clinical and sure. I give a small whistle, the same note as before, to take attendance. The reply arrives 1 note higher and a breath closer than last time, companionable without kindness. I think it learns me. No. The higher pitch empties into the hallway and nests back inside my chest, as if I made both and can own only one. The remembered arc of the ball sketches itself in hearing. A door that prefers its angle opens a fraction as I draw even, a courtesy or a dare. Beds inside face the long windows as if unwilling to present their backs. At one footboard, the dust keeps the shape of weight no longer there, pressed and lifted, pressed again. A strip of gauze pinned under a caster trembles once, still air, then complies. The room watches through me. At a T-junction, 2 corridors argue about distance. The right holds more windows, the left holds more doors. I stand in the cross and listen for the longer silence. The right wins. I go right and feel the choice noticed, like a page turned gently behind my shoulder. Tile squeaks under my toe once, a polite acknowledgement. The quiet deepens to make room for me. A break room waits with chairs pushed in and cups inverted like bowed heads. The refrigerator door hangs open enough to show darkness and no cold. My beam sticks to the rubber seal and finds a thin curve swept clean by a single fingertip. It leads outward, toward where a face might have been. The breath oval motif returns here, faint on the inner pane, smudged, patient. The ceiling plaster smooths and drinks the light. My shadow floats above me, then glides ahead like a scout, pausing at each doorway a beat before I reach it. When I stop, it overreaches and draws back, apologetic. The watched feeling isn't new here. It is practiced, padded into the walls. It doesn't tire when I do. It seems pleased that I measure myself by it. My breath stumbles against a cold pocket and folds back over my mouth like silk. The taste is metallic and winter clean. No dust. Somewhere behind, a gurney wheel turns a fraction and fits its own groove, a fastening sound as careful as a button. I think it moves to see better. No. The care is mine to imagine. The building keeps placing sounds like chess pieces. A linen closet exhales paper and starch. I reach into the long stripe of dark. The skin along my forearm knows I'm being counted. Not by fingers, but by volume. A hook takes my coat with the lightest bite. Then lets go. A proof rather than a threat. When I withdraw, lint floats like ash that refuses to settle until I stop watching. Turning toward 502, a cold bar crosses the air. It presses the moisture on my lips into a sting. I lower the beam and catch an eye that is mine. Then not. The window holds a quick oval I didn't make, hovering and fading with a patience that doesn't match the room. Behind me, the corridor remains precisely empty, the kind of empty that attends. Out on the patient's porch, the hill receives the night without changing it. Trees hold still like careful listeners. The rail bears small dents where a strap once bit. Under my hand, the metal warms too quickly, as if I complete a circuit. A leaf skates across tile and stops at the threshold as if tapped. It waits. The wind never claims it. A supply cart stands in the corner, one drawer missing. The others shut tight with arcs of clean where fingers pulled for years. The empty slot winks black and then unwinks, a trick I refuse to own. I push the cart a fraction and release it. It returns gently to the exact spot, wheels aligned. Two unseen hands are already doing their job. I double back, and the corridors answer with less change than I expect, more than they should. The watchedness widens into the sense of chairs turned toward a podium that was never installed, an audience that never coughs. Warmth rests at my back. Cool lives at my forearms. I keep the light low so it can be seen seeing. The pause I make is mirrored precisely elsewhere. Numbers climb and stall at 500. The door is closed. Lint at the hinge lifts once, then yields, a small hem obeying only itself. Rain finds this hallway without weather. It smells fresh and wrong. I think I'm expected. No. Expecting is mine. The room offers only the continuation of hall and the idea of a person in a doorway who never resolves into shape. A narrow window fractures the moon into needles across old safety glass. In each shard, a thin piece of me appears at a different delay. One slice tips its head a fraction more than I do, a better actor. I let the images fall behind. The building folds its listening smaller, richer, as if the focus tightens. I don't reward it by stopping. Somewhere a pipe ticks once, then swallows the impulse. The ball does not roll, but lives at the edge of thinking, a readiness without motion. Ahead, a curtain hem lifts to show the wear path on the floor, then settles with the quiet pride of a completed task. I want a draft I can measure, name, fix. The air refuses blame and stays. Past the bend, a row of glass-paneled doors holds its own tide line of dust. In one pane, two breath ovals bloom and fade on alternating beats, as if two chests drew air at different tempos. I step closer. The rhythm adjusts to stay out of phase with me. I think it is teasing. No. Teasing needs a face. The glass keeps its rules. A storage theater of folded screens and IV poles makes a grove of skinny trunks. My light threads through, and the shadows gather like listeners who won't applaud. A strap dangles and gently rocks without draft, then freezes mid-swing, the angle unchanged for too long. I step under and feel nothing touch me. The after-feeling lands anyway, precise as a pin. I circle back toward the stairwell. The rail hum returns faintly, a slow, patient breathing lodged in iron. I rest my ear and count 5 cycles before pride makes me stop. At the landing, the high oval sits on the glass again, identical in size, newly made. I hold my breath to starve it of excuses. It holds, steady and separate, waiting for nothing. The corridor leans no more and no less. The audience I invented remains content to listen. I let the watched feeling settle over my shoulders like a shawl I didn't choose and will not shrug off. The building approves of the fit. Somewhere in its ribs, a wheel turns a fraction and locks with care. The sound is placed. I keep walking. Part 4. The hallway feels narrower by a degree, a change I register in the ribs first. Moon bars rake the floor, shaved to threads so thin the dust looks stitched. My breath hits a colder layer and folds back over my mouth like silk. On the window beside me, a faint oval hangs wrong, not mine, fading at a rhythm that refuses me. I move on. The watched feeling keeps pace at the same invisible height. Patient. Numbers climb with confidence. 498, 500, the smell sharpens. Antiseptic nested under wet concrete, metallic at the back of the tongue. The rail holds a small vibration like a throat clearing behind a door. I listen until my ears warm and cool again. A distant wheel turns a fraction and locks with care. I think the place relaxes, no. It arranges me at an angle it prefers and waits for me to notice. A nurse's station floats in its glass. The dead clock still kisses 12, hands joined in a quiet vow. A bead chain hangs from the ceiling fixture inside, vertebrae of dull dots suspended in patience. My beam turns the links into a ladder of pale moons. They do not move. New fog crimps the glass at the lower edge, thin and even. The quiet feels padded, furniture made to muffle truth. The solarium opens briefly, arches framing the black hill. Leaves move like cards being squared. A white ball sits where wall meets floor, gray scuff aimed into the room like an unwinking eye. It does not roll. It doesn't need to. A pale arc on the tile suggests it tried and changed its mind, halfway between going and staying. I pass, and the idea of it watches my ankles with unblinking care. By a doorway, a cart shows clean crescents where fingers tugged for years. One slot is missing and black as a mouth. As I pass, the wheels give a nervous shiver, then become furniture again. The air is 2 degrees colder at my knees and warmer at the back of my neck, a braid of attentions. Cloth somewhere inhales without moving. My shoulders hitch, then uncurl because uncurling is permitted here. I lean to a small window. The glass takes my breath in a faint oval that refuses to overlap the one already there. Two breaths sit beside each other like strangers at a bus stop, perfectly polite. The older oval thins too smoothly, too evenly, like it's being replaced rather than fading. I hold my hand to the pain. The chill climbs through my fingertips and marrow deep into the wrist. Room 502 waits farther on, door ajar by habit rather than welcome. Lint threads lift at the hinge and nest again. Starch and rain dragged up from drains live low near the floor, wrong for a dry night. My light finds a line of call buttons under scabbed paint. One button drinks the beam, darker than dark, obstinate. I listen. The building takes a breath with me, holds it, lets me decide first. I step into the doorway's shadow, and the weight of the air shifts behind my ears. My palm drops to the knob. The metal is cellar-honest cold. The corridor hushes, waiting hush. Down the hall, a wheel changes its loyalty by half a turn. Somewhere, a chain remembers glass. Not yet. Almost. My tongue tastes iron without asking. The pocket of cold in the room seems to sharpen to a point. I check once down the empty hall, once into the empty room, and choose forward. Dust writes a thin line across my shoe at the threshold. Linen lifts when my beam crosses it, then lies perfectly flat again. The ceiling dips where it should not dip. I think the room is neutral. No. Neutral has no temperature. This space holds a winter in its middle, as if a mouth were pursed around a breath. My beam finds a corner. The shadow there holds its shape too well. It doesn't wobble when my hand does. It travels along the ceiling seam like a fingertip learning the room without touching it. It crosses above me with the attention of a hand trailing a banister from the wrong angle. I don't look straight up. Can't make my eyes want it. The cold touches the hinge of my jaw and withdraws, curious. The event arrives on a mark. The door of 502 moves without my hand. A patient swing. Unpainted wood breathes over tile. It closes with a soft, certain kiss and stays. The bead chain above the bed gives one clean swing and taps the glass. Tick. My beam jumps. A ceiling shadow cuts the room from corner to corner in a long, flat stride. Outside, a gurney wheel turns half a rotation. Stops. I freeze. Don't breathe. Don't blink. Linen lifts a fraction. Holds. Falls. Antiseptic climbs the throat until swallowing sounds like a word. Tick. No. Only memory. The knob is slick with cold under my palm, and where the skin warms it, the warmth feels borrowed and returned. The room listens hard enough to make my teeth feel named. Time bunches and thins around the bed's metal. Sound returns sideways, as if deciding my ears are not the right door. The wheel outside clicks into its groove, a small, precise fastening. On the window, a breath oval forms quick and neat at a height I cannot own. It steadies while mine unsteadies. My heart chooses a smaller rhythm. My light stutters. I close my eyes to steady the beam, and the dark steadies me back. Helpful and wrong. I press the knob. It resists like a polite hand. Yields a quarter inch. More. The air beyond is unmoved, colder at ankle height, warmer at cheek, a layered attention. The chain hangs still now, perfect, vertical. I won't ask it to speak. The ceiling seam shows no shadow only because I refuse to look long enough to let anything learn my face. The linen looks elsewhere on purpose. Outside, the corridor wears the event like a coat that fits. Nothing rattles, nothing scurries. The cart stands where a careful hand left it. The door of 502 holds an angle between open and closed that reads as deliberate. In the dust at the threshold, a track curves toward the hinge and stops. as if a small round thing rolled there and realized something about itself too late and was forgiven. I turn left and follow wheel tracks with a steadiness I don't own. The air thins to a sharper clean, chlorine folded under damp stone. A call cord grazes my shoulder without weight. The silence at my back is not empty. It is attended. My shadow passes under two vents and comes out lowered by a degree. I feel measured. Height, stride, breath, matched to a space I didn't choose and can't refuse. A wall phone hangs with its receiver missing. The coiled cord has looped itself into a figure 8 with a flaw. I touch the cradle. Warmer than the room, contour soft like a cheek held too long. I let go and my palm keeps the shape longer than it should. I think I'm being prepared. No. The preparing is mine. The building simply supplies positions. The cradle forgets my heat on cue. The solarium receives me like a stage that has judged the audience already. The hill beyond is angles in ink. A draft travels ankle high, careful not to disturb dust more than a hair's width. The ball sits at the corner again, or still. The toe of my shoe tests it by almost not. It rolls to midpoint, slows, reverses by a breath, and stops flush to my shoe. Hello, without voice, refusing to blink. I back away. It stays, kissing absence now. Moon bars slide off the rail and break the floor into small sentences. Iodine curls up the tongue and settles, unwilling to leave. A curtain hem rises to show the clean stripe where feet once walked. It rests with the satisfaction of a task completed. Cloth somewhere adjusts itself without a hand. My name is not said, and still the syllables arrive. After the solarium, the dead clock greets me again, hands loyal to 12. I lift the beam to the chain and let the cone become a spine of light. Nothing moves, but the attention changes pitch, like a room that leans in half an inch. I remember the tick in 502 and do not wait for it here. Decision tastes like metal when the mouth is dry. Respect and fear weigh the same on the tongue. I circle back toward the stairwell to test the geometry. The rail hums low, the way a chest hums when someone listens to their own breathing. I put my ear to iron. Breathing lives in there, slow and careful. I think it wants me to lead. No, I'm already following. At the landing window, a new high oval blooms, clean and separate. I starve it of excuses by holding my breath. It holds anyway. Down one flight, the air warms and cools on a loop, as if two rooms disagree on weather. The wheel trail splits and rejoins like a thought corrected. A notch in the rail finds my palm. Same notch, different floor. The familiarity should comfort. It files me instead. On a door with wired glass, my reflection tilts a degree more than my neck allows. It corrects late. It smiles late. I do not. In a treatment bay, stainless waits with the careful shine of old scrubbing. My beam writes a thin line on a tray, and the line breaks into dust at the seam. A gauze pad sticks where it died years ago. The smell is rain that doesn't belong. The ceiling seam accepts a traveling shadow and passes it along to the next room as if sharing a name. The name is never said. The name is understood. A bank of lockers breathes through its vents without draft. When I brush a door with my knuckles, the metal bites with cold. One locker hangs a fraction open. Inside, a folded paper refuses ink. Only pressure marks remain. I run the light along the sheet, and the indentations rise like the back of a hand. I do not slide it out. Some things prefer not to be read again and are allowed to win. I return to 502. The door is exactly as before, ajar by the same persuasion. The dust line across the threshold has healed a little, not enough to erase my shoe's script. I pause and the corridor mirrors my pause elsewhere, elastic, practiced. Cooler air draws a neat edge along my shoulder, a ruler against skin. Far in the break room, a chair creaks once without weight. The event is recorded. The bead chain above the hall door is still. It will stay still, or it won't. I take one step backward, and the attention follows forward by one, like a dancer practicing the mirror. For a heartbeat, I match it, then refuse. Refusal changes nothing and pleases something. A single tick presents itself in the mind. No. Thought, not sound. My pulse puts its fingers in my ears. I wait. The air smiles thinly. Past the turn, the corridor widens toward the ward, and the floor remembers less. Smell flattens to wet concrete and leftover bleach. On the nearest window, 2 breath ovals linger out of phase, thinning at different tempos, patient beyond human patience. I look at my shoes to break the stare. When I look up, the ovals have not learned me and do not need to. I keep walking. The building approves. Part 5. I try the stairs, the same flight that hummed like a chest listening to itself. Down 2 landings and a right, the corridor presents the dead clock again, hands joined at 12 like a vow. A notch in the rail finds my palm in the exact place as before, too neat for luck. The building isn't moving me, it's measuring how I move through it. Warmth at my face, cool at the wrists, a bridle set and worn. Turning left should take me toward admissions. Instead, a glass door with wired squares returns like an echo that learned my steps. My reflection tilts a breath past what my neck can do, then corrects late. At my feet, a shallow arc lies sketched by a rubber edge. Cart, chair, ball. I rub at the mark with my shoe. It persists. I think I'm retracing. No. I'm being retraced, line for line. A wall map under cloudy plastic pretends to help. Pale green floors, blue stairs, a clean gray slope marked service tunnel. You are here burns a thumbprint through dust, nailed at center. The legend says admissions is east. The corridors say east again and again until west feels merciful. I draw a line with my fingertip. The plastic squeaks, then heals itself. The path erases me neatly. Locked doubles hold the next hall, their glass turned milk with time. A pass-through window sits beside them with a tray half extended, a metal tongue waiting for cups that never came. When I press my palm to it, the steel gives a soft impression before springing back. Behind the doors, a single wheel rotates, nests into its groove, and stills. Courtesy. Or a warning shaped like manners. The break room keeps its choir of chairs, backs aligned as if rehearsed. Now one sits angled off by an inch, rib proud against the table edge. Cups remain inverted, awaiting blessing that won't arrive. On the refrigerator seal, a fingertip curve deepens and bends toward the hall. I open the door and meet room warm dark. On the inner pane, a small breath oval blooms, patient and undeserved. Down the next corridor, chlorine grows teeth and sets them at the back of my tongue. The floor is slick in old mopped strips. Dust takes a shine like frost. Call cords hang at obedient lengths, a row of quiet tails. One is a fraction long. I tug it and listen. Far away, a bead chain answers by not moving. The decision not to speak arrives like a perfectly folded napkin. The elevator cage waits with its mouth open and its teeth rusted mid-bite. No power for years, and yet the air inside is warmer, socks near a heater warm. A rope flayed down one side ends clean, cut like thought. I touch the threshold and hear the cage ease down a half-inch, ropes whispering in a shaft that knows me without liking me. Bad idea. I step back. The shaft approves, relieved. Solarium arches frame the hill again, the night pressed flat against glass. Leaves click in small arithmetic, counting me without hurry. The white ball lounges where two walls meet, scuff turned to consider the room. I almost leave it. Almost. A light nudge and it rolls, takes the crown of the floor, falters, returns a few inches, then rests against my shoe. Hello again, without voice, unblinking. The nurse's station holds its theater box posture. Through the fogged pane, the clock remains stapled to 12, faithful and wrong. New moisture rims the lower glass as if a kettle simmered there, though the air is knife cold at my cheeks. The bead chain is the room's throat. My beam lays a spine of light along its vertebrae. No tick. Yet the silence around it trims itself sharper, ceremonial. Opposite wing, then. Windows multiply, doors thin. Each pane breaks the hill's geometry into different fractures. On one, two breath ovals bloom and fade out of phase, a slow duet that rejects harmony. I cup my hands and add a small third. It thins on its own tempo and refuses to join the pair. The glass acknowledges me only as timing, not as person. That feels honest here. A treatment bay offers trays polished by the memory of scrubbing. Gauze fixed to a seam has petrified into hard lace. The odor is rain, honest rain, wrong in this room. Along the ceiling seam, a shadow travels, keeps to corners, vanishes in cutouts where vents sit. The pattern is so consistent, it passes for intent. I follow it with the beam like chalking the outline of a body that will not lie still. South stair now, the one with the numbered window. A draft spirals up and settles around my ribs like a belt let one hole out. The rail hum returns, patient breathing caught in iron, ear to metal, and the count pairs to mine. In 4, hold 2, out 4, hold 2. I think it leads me. No. It yokes me. When I step down, the hum steps down. When I stop, it anticipates the stop a half beat early. 2 flights and a right should land behind admissions. Instead, I reach a corridor of small rooms with numbered plaques. 311, 313, 319, then back to 311, a loop pretending to be variety. Dust keeps my tracks honest. The loop is real and unashamed. At the end, a door marked linen opens to a stripe of black. The smell is starch and gentle rot. A hook tests the hem of my coat and lets go. I need a point that cannot repeat. The loading bay, the slope down, the tunnel. The map promised a straight gray line. The floor scars offer proof. Cartwheels engraved heavier, wheels that carried weight. The grooves run to a double door locked by a rusted panic bar. I push. It complains, then yields. A band of colder air slips through and wraps my shins in a careful grip. The door opens into a hallway poorer in windows and richer in stains. Wet concrete wakes harder, a sleeping river remembered. Here bead chains hang rarer and lower, as if the ceiling meant to keep company. Light stops short of the floor. Black gathers in squares like missing tiles. Ahead, a wheel rolls one slow tooth and rests. It knows I heard and doesn't care what I think of that. Metal letters say supplies, an arrow pointing downhill. The slope is subtle, then less subtle. Breath becomes work. The beam jitters at a new frequency. A coil of hose lies asleep by the wall, and small shoe prints traverse the dust beside it. Too neat to be old. I crouch. The edges are crisp. Pressure is light. Someone nearby knows how to walk where walking is a kind of erasing. The hall kinks once and throws me at a door with wired glass and a stenciled word flaked to 3 letters. TNL. Everything past it cools a degree colder, the cold that prefers places people rarely visit. Face to glass, I send the beam down. Darkness accepts it as courtesy, not gift. Rails descend at a sensible angle. Air moves with purpose, not mine. Permission ends. The tunnel begins. The latch denies the first push. A second earns a hinge complaint that echoes down like a throat deciding to swallow. The door opens a palm's width, enough to slip through, enough to step back. I shoulder in and the angle takes me. The floor owns my stride. Smell is pure earth under bleach, the kind of clean you do when you know it won't matter. The ceiling lowers its regard and keeps it there. Halfway down, lights that do not exist perform their old trick. Dark to less dark to almost light, then back. Not electricity, timing. Behind me, a bead chain ticks once in memory, and that tick travels forward, scouting. I quicken. The lamp throws a shallow cone that seems to skate. Walls narrow and widen, but only to disagree with me, never enough to change my sums. Footprints shadow the dust at the edges, small and careful, laid where other steps once lived. My own prints are the bolder script in the middle. I try to walk in my earlier steps to disturb less. The tunnel is long enough to teach new math. Every count doubles before I check. I think I'm halfway. No, 1/3. Air tastes copper in a winter glass. Swallowing clicks. It keeps the beat. A service alcove breaks the run to the left. Inside, a slop sink, bottles with labels dissolved to milk white. A mop handle ending where a hand once decided to stop holding. When the beam warms the drain lip, metal rings with a hollow note. On the backsplash, a breath oval blooms, high and neat. I stand flat to the wall and refuse to add mine. The oval fades, returns, unbothered by lungs. Past the alcove, the slope fattens gradually. Thin wet gathers in seams where panels meet, a closed mouth line. A regular tick begins somewhere ahead. Not drip, tick, tick. Something small and deliberate. If I stop, it stops. If I walk, it resumes, pleased to be on tempo. The ball isn't here. Still my ankle expects it. The skin remembers the nudge more cleanly than the mind. A side door appears on the right, unmarked, thumb plates scarred by generations. I press. It holds, then gives into a short run of stairs going up. Air thins after the second step. The space is wrong for hiding and right for being hidden. I climb to a landing and look down through wired glass. My beam lives below like an obedient animal. I stand above myself, and am not comforted. The landing rail offers the same notch that found me upstairs. My palm drops into it, as if kept. Below, the main corridor swallows sound and returns it a touch late. Somewhere out of sight, a wheel rotates exactly a quarter turn, acknowledging position. I try a gentle whistle. The echo comes back one note higher, then a hair lower, and the lower note nests behind my teeth. Mine now. Kept. Back into the tunnel. The side door closes without drama. A clean crescent prints in the dust where it swung and immediately looks older than it is. Faint letters along the wall read "Exit" in peeled skin, the arrow loyal to gravity. Legs burn a degree. The ceiling drops another inch, then 2. The slope insists without shoving. A firm palm at the back that never breaks its line. A gurney lies ahead on its side, wheels like eyes watching the seam where wall meets floor. One wheel wears a glossy rim where many hands turned it in thought. I set my fingers on the cold rubber and nudge. Half a rotation answers. The precise fastening sound, then stop. The echo returns from deeper ahead, thinner by half a second. Another wheel answers that echo further on. A chain of acknowledgments. Dust shifts under my boot and furls along the edge like breath on wool. Antiseptic scrapes thin under the mineral wet of earth. Behind me, a door finds its latch with soft resolve. Temperature drops at ankle height, climbs at cheek, holds steady at the eyes. I think the tunnel narrows. No. The air widens around something I refuse to give shape. Keep walking. Keep the beam level. Don't let the cone think. For one beat, the lamp fails. Not a flicker, a clean absence. In the blank, the tick at my back travels ahead and stretches into distance. When light returns, the floor carries two sets of steps. Mine, blunt and present, and a second set lighter and older that adjusts to meet mine at careful intervals. Never touching, never choosing a side. We braid without consent, timed and separate. A final bend suggests a bay beyond reach. Temperature steadies into working cold, the kind cold that tools prefer. A metal door with horizontal bars waits half open, not wide enough for anything with pride. The bars wear the oil of many hands, darkened and dry. I push. It gives, then holds, as if fingers on the far side rest there lightly, not to refuse, only to measure how much I want through. I set the lamp on the floor and use both hands. Metal voices a low, unwilling note. The gap opens a hinge more. A wash of air that belongs to outside kisses my shins and withdraws, uninvited to stay. Behind somewhere, the bead chain presents a clean tick in my head, logging the attempt. I think this is the door, one. This is the door before the door. One more push, then one more. Both shoulders to steel. The hinge grinds, then frees an inch I didn't earn. The gap widens enough to choose. I choose. The tunnel wind shifts and brings a faint sweetness like wet leaves after heat. Unseen, a single wheel takes its place and locks, consenting to change. My breath fogs briefly and refuses to linger. Ahead lives the bay, and beyond it the slope's mouth. The building isn't done. Neither am I. Part 6. The bar door concedes another inch, then another, metal voicing a low, unwilling note. Air beyond it smells like wet leaves and warm stone, a kindness reserved for outside. My shoulders burn against the push. The hinge scrapes and frees a hand's width I didn't earn. I think this is the exit. No. It's the room before it. A mouth behind a mouth. The tunnel wind withdraws, waiting to see if I deserve the next breath. Inside the bay, shapes come forward. Pallets stacked like altars. A drain remembering rinsed wheels, paint shedding in curled tongues. My lamp combs the concrete and finds a long stripe of cleaner dust. A path carts once took, heavy and obedient. The air is colder at ankles, warmer at cheek. The difference sits like a hand measuring me. In the far corner, a chain hangs from a bulb. It does not tick. It considers. I step from the tunnel's throat to the bay's ribcage. The slope evens, the floor agrees to flat. A gurney stands upright here, wheels nested into the long stripe as if waiting to be told to move. I brush a rim and it turns half a rotation, the precise fastening sound I know. Echo comes back thinner, late. Somewhere further, another wheel agrees. The bay learns my pace in a single minute and keeps it. Doors line the wall, different widths, matching handles. Administration, tools, a service exit stenciled in black that kept its stubbornness. The exit wears a bar like the tunnel door, rust thick at the hinge, paint bloomed into scales. When I palm the bar, it is warmer than the room. A pulse I wish were mine. The silence around it arranges itself, padded, intentional, the kind that has rules. Behind me, the tunnel keeps its line like a patient instructor. I angle the beam back, and the downhill corridor eats light with respect. At its mouth, a dangling chain is visible in the cone. A ladder of dull dots, vertebrae of a throat that once spoke. It does not sway. The tick I expect becomes a shape inside my head, spare and perfect. I think I hear it. No. The quiet tightens instead, exact as stitching. I test the service bar. It gives a quarter inch, then a hiss that lives in the hinge. Pressure rises behind my eyes. I lean my weight, then both shoulders. Metal complains and accepts, a door negotiating history. The seam opens enough for a slip of warmer air to slide in and lay a stripe over my shins before retreating. The smell that comes is leaf and dust and asphalt that cooled hours ago. The chain behind and to the left lifts by nothing at all. My beam flattens it into a pale spine. No tick. But the attention in the bay finds edges, lips, corners, tightens everything that can tighten without closing. My breath fogs thinly. On a pane near the exit, an oval blooms at a height I cannot own and refuses to blend with mine. It steadies like a person choosing not to speak, and wins. I hammer the bar with my palm, a sound too loud for this place, and the echo loses its way among hooks and pallets. The drain answers with a hollow note, then gives it back smaller, embarrassed. My tongue tastes iron and chlorine at once. The door surrenders a little more, an inch with a scrape. On the floor, dust writes a half moon where the gap drafts it into a new arc. The bay approves, unsmiling. I wedge the lamp between pallet and wall, face it toward the hinge, and set both hands to the bar again. Push. Pause. Push again. The metal thinks about me. The hinge answers like a joint tired of refusing. Warmer air becomes an argument I could win if I keep my voice level. I think continuing is a mistake. No. Stopping is the mistake that wears your shape. The chain stays studiously still. The rubber ball is not here, and yet my ankle expects the small nudge that says hello. Expectation alone makes my calf flex. The gurney wheel nearest me rotates one patient tooth and nests with care. Attention rides a line between tunnel mouth and door bar, a taut wire. I rock hard against the bar. A paint scale flakes and lands square on my wrist, cold as a coin. A brief mark that does not care. Light thins further, a dimness with no named source. My lamp fights and wins along a narrow lane. The service door opens a hand's span wider. Outside is still not a picture, only air that knows it doesn't belong here. A leaf skitters across the sill and stops dead at the midpoint as if touched. The chain in the tunnel remains a sentence with no period. The silence grows shoulders and stands up. I put my shoulder to steel and count without wanting to count. In 4, hold 2, out 4, hold 2, the rail's old rhythm arrives uninvited and helps. The bar yields in small moral increments. I feel seen by hardware, measured by hinge and latch. My breath throws a weaker fog now, torn by drafts that come from where I insist on going. The drain gurgles once, an emptied throat remembering water. The seam crosses a point where resistance quits pretending. The door moves, honest and pained. A seam of night opens and delivers warmer stillness over my knees, a different world a finger's width away. I think this is over. No. Things like this don't end. They widen. I slip 1 foot forward, and the draft skates my ankle, lays a ruler along bone and leaves it there. The chain stays immaculate. Silence thickens at the threshold until it has weight. Even the building's casual noises submit to it. Gurney wheels hold their breath. Hooks forget to tap. Pallet splinters listen. My name doesn't exist here. I am a method. One hand keeps the bar. The other finds cold metal at the jamb and comes away dusted pale. In the gap, a single moth rides the light and insists on a season that isn't. I pull the lamp free, plant it at my feet, and press forward once more. The door shudders and then frees a space a body could own. A body exactly shaped like mine. The sort of invitation that has always been a test. Warmer air soaks my shins to mid-thigh. It smells like rain that didn't fall, like a road that steamed earlier. Behind, the chain's silence rounds, close to becoming a decision. I turn my face sideways and pass the narrow first. Hip, shoulder, ribs, a squeal that isn't squeal, more bone music than hinge voice. The tunnel's breath slides along my back and lets go. My chest clears the jam. The rest follows, jacket scraping a shallow memory into paint. For 1 second I live in the line itself, not inside, not out. I think I'm through. No. I'm only a fraction across. The bay drops from my ears like a hat removed. Sound fails into a new kind of stillness, not deeper, emptier of previous ownership. Night air presses, warm and level, a palm with no fingerprints. The door, at my spine, continues to lean as if someone on the other side politely keeps it helpful. I make room. 1 step, then another, and the weight of the building lifts a coin's worth, no more. Just outside, the landing is a pocket of angles. Stare down to loading grade, chain link fencing shouldering weeds, a short drive curving toward trees that hold the hill in strict lines. Sky is a dark flat, held low. No wind. The distant city is only an idea of orange caught in cloud seams. Beside the door, at shoulder height on a metal panel, a fresh oval of fog appears and holds, patient and exact. I don't breathe on it. I test not breath by holding still until the chest protests. The oval keeps its shape. It thins, thickens once, and steadies at the size of a mouth that isn't here. Skin tightens where night presses sweat to cool down. I lift a fingertip toward it and stop short. The panel feels warm without touching. The oval lives on, not mine. A single trace placed just outside like a receipt. The door rests against my back without closing, a courtesy or a claim. The bar sets its slow return. I listen for wheels, for that precise fastening. Nothing. The hinge breathes a little and then decides against it. My legs expect the rubber ball's nudge and are left alone. I think I'm alone. No. The not alone here is a quieter species, practiced and outdoors, its rules older than rooms. I sweep the lamp along the fence until it answers in a long, tired gleam. Links throw netted shadows across concrete. A splayed leaf lies against the mesh, bled flat, its veins a little map that points nowhere. The smell is road ghost and wet stone, less bleach now, more earth. Heat from the day holds under the landing's lip, a stored touch released on cue as if someone operated the night. At the stairs, rust feathers through paint layers, orange as old fruit. I plant my foot on the first riser and pause, hands empty for the first time in an hour. The oval behind me brightens a fraction, then dims, then returns to its polite persistence. It is the only thing here that behaves like breath. My chest decides a rhythm. The dark refuses to copy it, and I am grateful without knowing why. I descend. 3 steps. A turn at the peeling rail. Heat sticks at the neck even as the air on my forearms cools. The lamp's cone shortens without dimming. A trick of scale now that space is no longer teaching me its slope. At ground level, the exterior wall throws a long block of shadow into a yard too small for trucks now. Weeds push through seams in small green flames that tremble and wait. A strip of asphalt runs to a gate that latches without ceremony. The gate's chain is padlocked with rust that understood its job decades ago. I test it with a fingertip and find flake on skin, bright and bitter. The night seems pleased with its inventory. It waits for the next sound, as if the next sound is chosen. I do not force it. I keep my breath small. The oval refuses to fade. The chain will not tick. I measure the yard's edges and let the building stand at my back like a witness who won't testify. The trees beyond hold the hill rigid, their darks pressed flat against darker sky. Somewhere down the drive, a small stone settles without help. My mouth tastes copper that isn't mine. I think I have left. No. Leaving is larger than this. The dark learns my shape and holds it briefly for later. Part 7. Night holds level around the loading yard. Chain link nets the dark. Weeds push through seams. The city is an orange rumor pressed in the clouds above the trees. The door behind me waits politely ajar, my scrape honest on its paint, dust bright at the sill. A metal service panel beside it throws my lamp back as a flat coin, unreadable. From just inside, the bead chain gives one deliberate swing and a single metal tick, small and exact. I don't answer it. Heat stored in concrete exhales around my ankles. My footprints settle crisp as stamps, edges holding. Fence shadows cross and uncross as the beam glides, net on net, counting nothing. The gate shows a rust that believes in itself and will not bargain. Air stays warm and windless, a hand without fingerprints. I keep my breathing small. The panel keeps its calm. The door leans without choosing. Nothing here borrows my rhythm. Then, with no breath from me, a new oval fogs the panel at my mouth's height and holds, patient, exact, refusing to thin. The yard waits as if the next sound is already chosen. The dark arranges my outline for later. I lift a finger, stop short, feel warmth radiate from steel I haven't touched. The door does not close. The chain does not speak. On steel, breath prints from no mouth facing in.